Hey everybody, it's Kaladesh, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing another premiere draft of Kaladesh Remastered. Without further ado, let's get into the draft, take our pretty sweet rare. The Life Crafter's Bestiary is going to be a very slow card, but it provides a ton of card advantage, scrying every single one of your upkeeps, and letting you draw a card every time you cast a creature. So it's going to win the long game almost every time, it's just not going to immediately impact the board state the second you drop it down. So there is that to keep in mind, but overall still an excellent card draw engine. For pack 1, pick 2, we've got a Chief of the Foundry, which works excellently in a lot of decks, because it's going to be great with any servo tokens, any Thopter tokens, and just artifact creature spells in general. It's a nice wide open card that can fit into basically anything in the format, so pretty easy, pretty high pick. Some great monocolored removal spells here as well, with Chandra's Revolution and Daring Demolition, and a really solid signpost uncommon, really solid just blue-white tapper there. But I like staying open and grabbing the Chief of the Foundry here. Pick 3, we've got another great colorless option. The Bomat Bazaar Barge is another fantastic value play that can fit into any deck thanks to its colorless nature. So we'll take the Bomat Bazaar Barge here. Again, some solid colored options here like Pima Outrider for a beefy creature. Metallic Rebuke's a great counterspell, and Renegade Wheelsmith's really nice for red-white vehicles, but we're just going to stay nice and open when we've got equally powerful colorless spells. For pick number 4, we've got a few solid options. They're pretty much all colored this time around. We've got a Revoke Privileges for removal out of whites, a Gear Seeker Serpent for a huge finisher in any blue deck, but it is better the more artifacts you have. And then some other decent stuff. The Artisan's a fine filler creature in white, the Rebuke, fine counterspell for blue. We are somewhat tied to green with Lifecrafter's Bestiary here, because we really need to have the green mana available to actually draw cards off of this. So we're kind of green for now. Not completely colorless here, so we'll take that into account. I think I want to take one of these blue spells over one of the white ones. You know what? I'm really not sure. I think green, white, and blue-green are both pretty decent options for different archetypes to hop into. I think they both play pretty well. They're just in like different directions. Blue-green is going to want a lot of energy providers, and white-green is going to want a lot of token production. A lot of go-wide stuff so that you have your Dawn Feather Eagles and stuff like that at the top of the curve that buff your whole board. So maybe green-white actually plays a little bit better with like Chief of the Foundry here, because we'll have more servo production for the most part, because we can grab cards like Servo Exhibition, we can grab Pima Outriders and stuff like that. Yeah, I think we take Servo Exhibition here, go for green-white, kind of go wide, although that does make our bestiary a little awkward when we play Servo Exhibition, because that means one of the quote-unquote creature spells in our deck isn't technically going to trigger the bestiary, plus we've got a vehicle that won't trigger it either. So some nombos here, not a ton. We can still run like 15 actual creatures and a servo exhibition and a vehicle, so still work around this. I'm just noticing some things we definitely don't want to continue doing. We don't want like 3 vehicles and 3 servo exhibitions in a Lifecrafter's Bestiary deck. And I've got really mediocre removal, a mediocre filler creature, actually a couple of them. Or there's a Shipwreck Moray, which I actually like a lot in energy decks. This would be really good for blue-green versus just like filler stuff for white-green. So I'll do a speculative pick there. I think anything we take out of white's pretty likely to get cut there anyway. Pick number 7, now we can take an Eddy Trail Hawk for the green-white deck. Perfectly happy with that. This is a great way to get your beefy green creatures into the sky in the late game to jam your opponent in the face for a bunch of damage. Green has like 4/4 tramples and 5/5s and stuff like that, so it's nice to send those in the sky later. Pick number 8. It's going to be a very filler removal spell or a very filler combat trick. I'll take the combat trick, I guess. Pick number 9, now Metallic Rebuke towards blue, or we could take a Tune with Aether out of green and maybe do some combination of all 3 of these colors. Do a little bit of splashing if we need to in some direction. Yeah, I'll take the Attune with Aether. Pick number 10. It's a Puzzle Knot, select for inspection. Both are pretty filler. I mean, maybe we've seen weak enough green that we can just be like white for now and choose a secondary color based on what we open in pack 2. It's possible. Our only green spell really is the Attune with Aether. Or not the Attune with Aether, it's the Life Crafter's Bestiary. The Attune with Aether is just like solid filler fixing if we end up in that direction. Although Metallic Reek's a really good counterspell in a blue deck with a good amount of artifacts. This can be 1 mana if you just have a Puzzle Knot sitting on board and a Servo. It's not that hard to get in that kind of position. Filler white spells. Yeah, I don't know if we're actually going to end up in green. I mean, we really only pack 1, pick 1 to green spell, and didn't see much great in green after that. So I don't know if it's the color we want to be in here. Alright, well, we've got a very, very easy excuse to hop off of green here when we see Karazev, Skyship Raider, one of the strongest rares in the format. 2 mana for a 1/3 first strike menace that spits out a 2/1 tapped and attacking every time she attacks. It's just super nasty. 3 power and toughness for 2 mana on attacks every turn. Part of it's evasive with that menace. Yeah, Karazev is insane. Even better than Scrapper Champion, which is a great uncommon. I think we take Carry here and see if we can head into red. Maybe red-white or blue-red here. Pack 2, pick 2 gives us another Chief of the Foundry I kind of want to take. A little sad to take it over a Self-Assembler, because the more of these that you take, the better they get, and the earlier you take them, the more likely you are to get multiples. But I think Chief of the Foundry is just really good, and it's also nice and open. Anything that we play that's creating servos or thopters is going to have a great time with the card. That was a really good pack all around. There was also a Sky Skiff there for just another great colorless spell. Pack 2, pick 3, there's a Chandra's Pyrohelix for excellent removal out of red to go with Carry. Could also go for Prophetic Prism or Renegade Map. Both of these would be super solid fixing. Don't think I take those over Pyrohelix, but if it weren't in the pack, these would easily be the pick. Really either or, but I do prefer Prophetic Prism a little bit. Really looking like red-white or blue-white here when we look at the mana curve like this, where these are the creatures, these are the spells. We've got 4 white creatures. I guess we've got the Bestiary still in there as well. It's not actually in the creature count. We'll see. Pick 4, there's nothing good for red, nothing good for blue, and nothing good for white. No good colorless spells here, so we just take one of these great green creatures with the Pima Outrider and the Riparian Tiger. I think we take the Outrider over the Riparian Tiger with 2 copies of Chief of the Foundry to work well with that servo. But it is awkward to be moving back towards green, because it's basically our second green spell, really. I still don't think that color's super likely. It's just that nothing else there is gonna make the cut. Definitely glad we have a few premium colorless spells right now, because sorting by color, we're still dancing around a bit for sure. Pack 2, pick 5, none of this is premium. Subtle Strike's a pretty solid combat trick for black. Die Young's kind of narrow removal for black. I don't think we can afford to hop onto a 4th color to compete with all these as a secondary. I think we just take a Countless Gears Renegade. And we're pretty locked in on white as the primary color. Pick number 6. Infiltrator's okay in red. Minister's okay in blue if you've got a big energy theme. Probably would rather just take a solid aggressive white card like Audacious Infiltrator, since we know that'll end up in the deck. Pick 7, we get another Audacious Infiltrator. Or a Narnum Cobra, just for another artifact creature to go with Chief of the Foundry, plus it goes into our curve no matter what. Even if we're not playing green, we just put it in for the double Chief of the Foundry. It's not going to be a good card, it's going to be the weakest creature in our deck. But it does go into our deck no matter what. I guess Infiltrator does as well, and it's slightly better than the Cobra, so we take that. Slightly better than the Cobra if we don't end up playing green. Slightly worse than the Cobra if we do. Okay. Pick 8 Self-Assembler. That could be good. We opened a Self-Assembler this pack, so if no one took this one, it's not that unreasonable to imagine that the pick 9 Self-Assembler sticks around as well. Cross my fingers a little bit here. I'll go for it. Well, it didn't work out. Pick 9 self-assembler is not a thing for us. Built to Smash is fine if you're a very aggressive red deck, but Eager Construct is okay filler for literally any deck. I think I need to be taking some colorless spells. Oh, it's pick 10. Never mind. We are going to get that self-assembler incredibly late and be super happy with it. I am very cool with that. Alright. We're doing great on all the white cards here. Get another Eager Construct. Yeah, I mean, our secondary color can just be like a few cards of whatever's the best. So if we open a second red rare, a second green rare, or we open a blue rare, we just go that way. Seems fine to me. Alright, pack 3, pick 1, Aether Sphere Harvester. What a hit. This is an excellent card. You should pick one no matter what your deck is doing. It's really easy to crew it, and it's so big for the mana cost. A 3/5 flyer that also gives itself lifelink. Busted card, really easy pick, and an excellent addition to the deck. Pack 3, pick 2. Another Revoke Privileges looks pretty fine to me. The one big issue with this is you can't deal with any vehicles with it. And since it is pacifism style removal, your opponent can get out of it if they bounce their own creature back to their hand or if they blow it up with Naturalize. So it's not the best, most premium removal ever, but it is removal in the only color we're guaranteed to play. So I think I still take it over Leave in the Dust or Appetite or like Renegade Rallier trying to push into specifically green-white. Pack 3, pick 3. Aeronaut Admiral. I mean, it's okay with our Bomat Bazaar Barge, but 1 toughness for 4 mana is a hard sell in this format. There's some stuff like 4th Bridge Prowler, Puzzle Knot, Pyro Helix that can do like 1 damage to something, so having a 1 toughness 4 mana spell can be really bad, even if it has great abilities. I think I'd rather just take like my second Pima Outrider here, and maybe we are trying to stick to green-white so we can still do our Bestiary things over our Karizev things. Yeah, take another Pima Outrider. I think I'm going to lock in back on green. And Karizev, because she's such an aggressive creature, such a low mana value creature, isn't really the best splash to like attune with Aether just to get a mountain to try to play Karizev on turn 4 or 5 or something later. But a Servant of the Conduit is an additional way to help splash things in, so maybe we'll splash something, probably not Karizev. But we'll take the Servant now. Well, there's a Prophetic Prism as well, but there's also a Sky Skiff for an excellent vehicle. What's our actual creature count? 15? Well, that's exactly kind of what I wanted it to be for the Lifecrafter's Bestiary to be reasonable. So, yeah, I think we can play 15 creatures and also fit this vehicle in here. So I'll take Sky Skiff over the Prism. Again, the only thing we'd really splash in is maybe like Pyro Helix and Puzzle Knot just for more interaction. Our blue spells aren't really powerful enough to want to splash in. Yeah, no. We're probably just 2-color green-white stuff here. Pick number 6. Maybe High Spire Artisan's okay when we have 2 Chief of the Foundry. Get that Servo onto the board. Probably still more exciting to take another Eddy Trailhawk, but I have a lot at 2 mana. So this would just be like we play this over an Eager Construct or something. I don't know, I'll still take it there. I think it is much better than the 3-drop generally. Pick 7, there's a Wild Wanderer for splashing. But again, nothing really to splash in. Take a Countless Gears Renegade. Another Self-Assembler, let's go. Self-Assembler copy number 3 looks pretty good. I think these are pretty great with our 2 copies of Eddy Trailhawk and our 2 copies of Chief of the Foundry. And they're just a great way to top off your curve every time. So we'll go for it. Actually really good with Lifecrafter's Bestiary as well, because if we have one in our hand and we've got the Bestiary sitting on the board, we can always scry the second one away. So that's really cute. Take another giant top end card or another 2-drop. feel like I kind of have a million 2-drops, so I'll take a cavalry here. Stack it up. Now we get the Renegade Rallier to come back. This is pretty cute. The idea behind this, usually it's not the greatest thing ever because it doesn't line up that well all the time. But when you do live in Magical Christmas Land, you attack in with your 2-drop creature, trade it off into theirs, and then play this and bring yours right back to the board. That's the idea around that card. I don't think it always plays out that way, but that's your hope when you play the Renegade Rallier. I'll take an Appetite for the Unnatural. I don't think I'll end up playing it, but I'm definitely not going to end up playing the 3/1 for 4 mana. Again, just the low toughness is a big issue. Alright, so we've got 32 cards. This is not exactly what I'd want my green-white decks to look like, because we didn't see any of the Hawk. I think the Hawk is the biggest part towards getting these decks to really function. That's the 5 mana 3/3 that gives your whole board +1/+1 and Vigilance until end of turn. So with a green-white, you want to take a bunch of like Fabricate cards and Servo Production cards, get a super wide board, and then just start slamming down multiple copies of the gigantic eagle thing. Dawnfeather Eagle, that's the card. But this is very different than that. We don't have anything that buffs the entire board, so we're much more like producing the servos to buff our vehicles, and we've got really good vehicles with Aethersphere Harvester and Sky Skiff. And we can buff the servos with like Chief of the Foundries as well, which is cute. So mana ramp wise, it is fun to get to 5, but not super necessary. I don't think I need 2 mana dorks at 2 mana. Might still want one of them. One could still be okay. I guess we could run double Revoke and 1 Appetite for the Unnatural. Then I've got a way to deal with vehicles if our opponent's on that stuff, and everybody should have at least 1 or 2 artifact creatures if this blows up. Hard for this to be a complete blank, and this way we have 3 pieces of interaction instead of just the 2. As we're just a 2-color deck and we don't really care about energy, I think we cut the Attune with Aether. And if we're going to run 3 pieces of removal style interaction, I think we drop the double evasion combat trick. Another thing that's pretty cute with this is it can trigger a revolt. So if we want to use this to pick up a Countless Gears Renegade and recast it, we can. But then we basically have ended up spending the card to make the servo, because we still have to spend the mana to recast the Renegade. And we're down a card because we've used our Alley Evasion. So we basically turn this into a 1/1 servo, which is maybe worth it with Chief of the Foundry. Probably not. It also works with the Renegade Rallier's Revolt. We can pick up the Renegade Rallier with this, recast in the same turn. That might actually be worth a card. Spend your Alley Evasion to pick up a 2-drop from your grave. It still feels really narrow. And we got to make some room with the non-creatures, and it's super hard to cut any of these vehicles or the bestiary. So I think we have to cut these 3. Still, there's 21 creatures. Okay, so what are the weakest creatures here? Honestly, I think all of our 2-drop creatures are equally weak and narrow. Whereas none of them are like really exciting, but they all do something good in a specific position. The Renegades maybe get a Revolt trigger and make servos for us, which are good because of the Chief of the Foundry. The Eager Constructs are maybe on the board alongside the Chief of the Foundries. The Eddy Trailhawks maybe stick around when we have Self-Assemblers and Peam Outriders later to get some flying damage in, and the Infiltrators might be able to jam in for a lot of early damage. If I had to pick, I don't know, I might cut like 1 of each, really. I do think the Mana Dorks are actually the least exciting of all the 2-drops for this deck. Might be thinking about it the wrong way, but I think we have a really reasonable aggressive curve to where we don't need to jump up mana-wise to get to these 4s and 5s early. We can just slam creatures down throughout the curve, start chipping in with evasive threats, use removal. I don't think this is really a mana ramp kind of deck. But I suppose the upside of the Servant of the Conduit is it can still beat in like any other 2-mana 2/2. And it's perfect fixing, so if we're on a mono green hand and we have it, it can help us as well. Druid's definitely the weaker of the 2-mana dorks, so I'll get rid of the Druid. And then maybe some other combination of these. It's a possibility. At 3 mana, Herald of the Fair is definitely the weakest 3-mana card, but I also only have 4 3-mana cards, so I don't feel we need to cut anything there, but we could. 4 mana. Aether Inspector is significantly weaker than Peema Outrider. The 2-mana versions of these cards are great, like a 2-mana 2/1 First Strike that can spit out a servo when it attacks in, a 2-mana 1/2 Flyer that can spit out a servo when it attacks in. Those are awesome, because at that point in the game, your opponent is not likely to have established very many blockers, and even if they do, those cards both have abilities that make them good at attacking into blockers. With flying, you can fly right over their blockers. With First Strike, you can just eat their blocker before they deal any damage back to you. The Aether Inspector, not only is it a 4-drop to where your opponent has probably got some beef on the board by the time you cast it and try to attack with it, but it's also only a 2/3, and its ability doesn't help it attack in at all. It helps you leave it up as a blocker, but you're attacking with a 2/3 on turn 5 at the earliest and trying to spit out a servo without it dying, and that's much more difficult than those 2-drops. So this is much, much weaker, just wildly worse than those 2-drops, and also much, much weaker than Peema Outrider. Would you rather have a 4-mana 2/3 Vigilance that might give you a servo if it can get an attack in profitably, or a 4-mana 3/3 Trample that gives you a servo no matter what? I know what I would choose. And then we have enough top end, we can maybe cut a Lifecraft Cavalry. We're not cutting any self-assemblers, obviously. But Cavalry is also the biggest creature in the deck, so it's kind of nice to have. All right. Some combination of these, we'll cut these 5 and go down to 15 creatures alongside 3 vehicles, and that seems like a super good count to me. 15 creatures, 3 vehicles, and a servo exhibition, so plenty of threats here. So let's go... I'm going to cut Aether Inspector. I think it's the worst card that we've set aside here. I'll keep the Servant of the Conduit, maybe jump up to self-assemblers early, every now and then, even if we're not doing it with our Druid of the Cowl. I'm not running any combat tricks or equipment or anything to help the Infiltrators later, so they do end up trading into our opponent's smallest creatures. That ability is really nice on these. You know they're never just going to trade into a Servo token, or a Thopter token at least, so maybe they're still not bad, but I kind of like the idea of just going for all the 2-drops instead. You know, I'm going to be silly with it. I like to do this a lot, where I just play like one of each. Play around with them and see how they all work and see what ends up being really fun and really nice. And if anything really impresses me, then maybe it'll get me to remember to change my deck in between rounds and throw in a second copy of that and cut the card that really underperforms. So that could be a thing. Now, do I want a 4th 3-drop or a 4th 5-drop? Generally, you want the 4th 3-drop, but I think the 5-drop's much stronger for its respective mana value. So how much do we care about the curve? I guess we've got Bestiary, we want to just slam down turn 3 as early as possible, and Harvester we also want to just slam down as early as possible, so I'll keep the Cavalry in over the Herald of the Fair. Still keeping the 17 lands in, because we really want to get to 5 mana and start looping the self-assemblers together. But overall, I think we're good. I think we've done it. I think we will call it a deck here. Alright, here's looking at our final deck list for today. We're on a green-white kind of artifact-centric deck here, where we're using a couple of Chief of the Foundries to buff up a lot of our best creatures. So some of our best ways to close out the game are just great evasive vehicles like usual, with a Sky Skiff and the excellent Aether Sphere Harvester. We've also got the Bomat Bazaar Barge for a large creature to get buffed by the Chief of the Foundries, a few self-assemblers at the top end that can chain into each other and be a little beefier with the double Chief of the Foundry, and plenty of servos between a couple Peema Outriders, a servo exhibition, and maybe every now and then a Countless Gears Renegades Revolt trigger. So plenty of stuff to buff up with the double Chief of the Foundry, and a solid curve of creatures in general. That's the only thing super unique going on with the deck outside of that little artifact aggro stuff. It's just a bunch of decent green and white creatures on curve, some good removal with a couple revoke privileges and an appetite for the unnatural, and then one very nice card draw engine at rare with Lifecrafter's Bestiary drawing us a card every time we cast a creature and scrying every single turn, no matter what. So Pretty solid looking deck today. We'll see how it all plays out for us as we head into the gameplay. Here we are on the draw for game 1 with a mono-colored hand. Be pretty happy to keep this on the play. On the draw, it might be a little too slow to try to play the bestiary turn 3 before we play the Chief of the Foundry. I think we still keep it because any land in our first 4 draw steps lets us go Chief of the Foundry into Pima Outrider at least. But we might have to hold off on the bestiary and miss on a little bit of card draw here. Definitely not perfect. Well, never mind. I was going to say, definitely not perfect since we don't have the white source. But I think it's reasonable enough to keep. Hitting the white source on curve makes the hand about as good as it can get. Because if we really need to get defensive, we can Servo Exhibition into Chief of the Foundry, but if we want to get max value, we can still play that bestiary turn 3. And we won't have missed out on any card draw. Because it's not like the Servo Exhibition was technically a creature spell anyway. Alright, so Rogue Refiner, we are threatening to double block and kill that already, so I think I'm cool to take a turn off with the Bestiary. It's not like I can stop the Plunderer regardless. So we take a turn off casting Bestiary, then we drop Chief of the Foundry and draw a card. And then Pima Outrider and draw a card. We just curve out like that from there. Ooh, Fabrication Module. Plus the way to get the energy pre-combat. Oh, but they put it on the Plunderer. Okay. So say if they put it on the Rogue Refiner, then I wouldn't be able to threaten the trade here. But that Aether Hub means they have a mana of any color available to try to combat trick into killing our servos. I'm going to take the extra damage here. These are about to be much bigger with the Chief of the Foundry down, but we might be getting aggroed out too much by a Skyship Plunderer that gets bigger every single attack. Scry that away. Still find more mana. Alright, Chief of the Foundry plus draw a card it is. Hold up all these blockers for the ground troops. There's the revoke privileges for the flyer. If we can stabilize, Lifecrafter's Bestiary is going to take us all the way there. So if this privileges gets to stick around on that Plunderer, we should be in a decent spot. But the Fabrication Module is definitely pretty terrifying from a green-blue energy deck. They're likely to have many ways to get more +1/+1 counters on this board, outside of just spending 4 mana on this. Tezzeret's Ambition. Alright, just draw 3. Pretty happy they take the turn off from advancing their board state. And just focus on some card draw. That gives us a little bit of breathing room here. Alright, 100% have to revoke privileges here. Wow. We have hit quite the land clump. That is kind of wild. If we hit one of our 2-mana creatures, I think we would have cast it there even without getting the Bestiary card draw, just to make sure we're getting more onto the board. Aether Swooper, another flyer. That is not good for me. Got a few flyers in my deck and a few ways to kill that, so could still draw out of this, but it's not good for us. Happy to see they just throw everything on the Rogue Refiner rather than the Swooper, though. We triple block to get to wipe the whole board. I think we're just chumping. You're not really going to help. Scry you to the bottom. There we go. So that Harvester is... How is it only turn 6? This is kind of just a wild curve from our opponent. Yeah, it's only our turn 6. I was gonna say, if we had 7 mana, maybe get a pretty good board state here, but we can only play 1 spell because it's somehow only turn 6 and we're facing all this damage. Kind of just like the mythical draw from blue-green energy here. Alright. I mean... Guess we take a hit in the sky. since that is significantly smaller than the ground troops. And this way I draw another card as well. Thriving Rhino gives them energy, so they get a +1/+1 counter. Era of Innovation gives them energy. Oh, I thought it does. Only when artifacts and artificers hit the board, okay. But they can draw 3 off of it. They have way more than enough. Or that just be 2 mana, draw 3. Oh, wow, but they can play the Swooper, they get an artifact off of it, they spend the 1, get the 2 energy to make another servo, get the counter on the Swooper. This is just stupid. Our opponent is living in magical Christmas land. Yeah, I mean, there's no... we're moving on. There's no coming back for something like that. 0-1 to start things off. Here we are for another mono-colored hand in game 2. We're on the draw, so we have another draw step towards hitting the green source, plus we can scry towards it with the Eager Construct. I'm going to keep the hand. We are on a 9-8 split, so we're as close to 50-50 as we can be on an odd number of lands. So pretty awkward to get a couple mono-colored openers in a row. Drew out of it immediately in game 1, so that was nice, but looks like we will not have the same happen here. Actually draw a double green card, which is super bad without the green source. Playing against another blue-green energy deck. Scry away from the self-assembler and towards the land. Hopefully much sooner rather than later. Oh, fabrication module matchup again. We did scry to that green source, so that's beautiful. Got the appetite for the unnatural this time around. I could just blow up the module immediately before it does anything. Pretty tempted to just play Servant of the Conduit this turn. So they're likely to just get 1 +1/+1 counter next turn anyway. At which case I can still trade any of my 2/2s into the Cobra. Although if they cast like a Thriving Rhino or something, then I guess it's gonna immediately turn into a 3/4 if they want to put the counter on the Rhino. Whirler Virtuoso. One of the best uncommons in the format. Spits out Thopters for 3 energy, and there's nothing I can do about that. Slam down the self-assembler, or just blow up the fabrication module now. Guess we blow up the module now. Since Eddy Trail Hawk gives us more energy, we'll play the Hawk and blow up the module. I guess I wait till they try to get more energy, so I can hold up Servant as a blocker until then as well. But Fabrication Module doesn't trigger until they get energy, and if they want to spend next turn tapping the module, then that is fine. It's much better than them spending it casting a spell. Okay, so that is going to give them energy. It's also just a massive finisher. So blow up the module. They get the energy to make another Thopter off the Whirler Virtuoso. Luckily a 1/2 flyer plays really well against 1/1 flyers. That is a very aggressive attack. I'm very okay with these trades. Well, the Hawk doesn't even trade, it just gets a free kill. But yeah, I'll take that. I'm pretty happy to see that. They do have the energy to buff the Tiger on attacks, but only if they save the energy and don't use it on Virtuoso. Or if they have, like, another energy-producing creature to play here. So one self-assembler might be enough to block and trade with the Tiger, but if they do buff the Tiger on attacks, I can still double block it with a 4/4 and a 2/2 Servant. Trade 2 creatures into it. Probably won't. Oh, that Era of Innovation is so good with the Thopter and Servo producers. So they spend 3 energy to get a Thopter, but they get 2 energy when they get that Thopter. So Thopters only cost 1 energy now as long as they have that Era of Innovation. Which is kind of an issue, but as long as I have a 1/2 flyer, the Thopters aren't hitting me at all, at least. They're just kind of holding up for blocks. So let's just keep self-assembling. And maybe even start chipping in pretty soon. Could even be right now. I think I'll wait one more turn. I'll start attacking next turn, and then I could even get a Renegade Rallier trigger if they do want to go for a trade. Get my Eager Construct back. Send in the Tiger. What, do they just draw into the +3/+3? +3/+3 doesn't even work here. It has to be a massive combat trick they just top decked, so I'll go for the double block. Alright, cool. It's a Lifecraft Cavalry. That's still fine. I still trade a single 4/4 into the Tiger and then a single 4/4 into the Cavalry. I just can't attack in now. That's the part that's not fine. That's a little more sad. Can't attack in, but at least neither can our opponent. And I can't send in with the Eddy Trailhawk trying to give something else flying because they can respond by making 2 Thopters. Again, because they spend 3 to get a Thopter, they have 1 energy left, and they produce 2 energy off of that Thopter hitting the board. So they have the energy to make 2 Thopters and double block my 1/2 flyer with 2 1/1s. I guess with the Renegade Rallier I can do that now, if I've got the mana up to play the Renegade Rallier. Sure. And then they'll be like out of energy till they top deck something. Yeah, we can Renegade Rallier back the Eddy Trailhawk. Oh. Or we just don't need to. Cool. Play a Peema Outrider. Think we go wide. Drop an Audacious Infiltrator. Because no matter what size the Outrider is, it's not breaking through Cavalry, so... There we go, and that's why we like going wide. Chief of the Foundry pre-combat to get an extra point of damage in. But we still hold up that Rallier mana if they do want to spit out the Thopters to kill our Eddy Trailhawk. Alright, big work from Eddy Trailhawk so far. We've still got 1 more energy to get 1 more swinging in the sky, but next turn we can just attack with everybody. Although I guess they probably have enough chumps off double Thopter to not die if we do that. How greedy is it to go for it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blockers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take 1, 2, 3. Somewhere between 3 and 5 damage is going to get dealt to them. They get to kill 2 of our creatures for free and chump the rest. It's probably fine to just do it here, but I'm going to do this 1 more turn and then I'm going to attack all. Aether Meltdown. Now they've got double Thopter worth of energy. Just naturally, even without the Era. I think they didn't notice their Era combo earlier, but they'll definitely notice it now. Yeah. Now they get like 3 Thopters. So they probably do kill the Eddy Trailhawk. We get to Renegade Rallier it. See how much we get to deal next turn. So they've got 4 energy. That is, again, going to be double Thopter because of the Era of Innovation. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blockers, 7 blockers, and they're at 11. What a draw. That's really good for our opponent. Well, I mean, now they know they can just double Thopter and kill the Hawk if I send it in again. I have to start just passing. Man, that life gain coming in so clutch here. Might have been close to lethal. It's definitely not now if I go all attack. Nope, I think we gotta wait for a Sky Skiff or Aether Sphere Harvester. Problem is, I think more of their draws are going to be live than ours, because that Era of Innovation turns any artifact or artificer they draw into another Thopter. Not completely, but close. Turns them into 2/3 of a Thopter. Alright, well, their next draw is good. Yeah. We're stuck here. Oh, that just kills us. Now this Thopter gets to shoot something for 2 every turn, so they kill the Eddy Trail Hawk. Next turn they kill the Audacious Infiltrator. Next turn they kill the Renegade Rallier. Revoke Privileges can't stop a creature's abilities, so it can't stop this Thopter from shooting our stuff. Yeah, I mean, I can't even stop Whirler Virtuoso's abilities, so all I can do with this is just stop the cavalry so I can attack with some beef on the ground. That Quicksmith Rebel is the absolute mirror-breaking bomb that is gonna just destroy us for not finding the kill by now. Let's see how close we can get and send a message at the same time, I guess. Right? No, they're gonna have way too many good blocks here. I think I actually jumped the Chief of the Foundry into the sky rather than the Self-Assembler, because Self-Assembler, they don't have good blocks for it anyway. But they've got 2 4 toughness creatures, so they go block a 3/3, block a 3/2. Actually, no, they just block multiple 3/3s. The 3/2 doesn't block, because they need to keep it around. So block these with creatures that don't even die. Block a 2/2 with a 1/3. Create 2 more Thopters. Chump a Self-Assembler, chump that. I mean, it's like not good for us, but it's just so much worse for us if I just keep passing turn, because they just keep ripping our board away every turn anyway. Yeah. Alright. It's the Flunge. It's what we got here. Maybe I'm still supposed to send Self-Assembler in the sky just for more damage. Imagine it's Chief of the Foundry, so they don't just kill that for free. Even if I throw... No, we'll do it to Chief of the Foundry, because even if I throw the Self-Assembler in the sky, they make a Thopter and chump. So they make a Thopter and chump regardless. So I just buff... I put whatever I want in the sky. I put whatever creature I don't want to get killed in the sky, so that it just gets blocked by a 1/1. They can block it with a 1/1 and shoot it for 2 damage if they got enough life. God, this is so gross. That's like 3 Thopters. Yep. Really just looks like no shot again. Basically the same combo, just devouring our soul. And triple block the Chief of the Foundry. So I guess it really didn't matter. Why are they double blocking that Pima Outrider? Because they really want to make sure they don't die to a combat trick. Trample combat trick. We'll just see how the dust settles. Mathis for blockers. Whirler Virtuoso Era of Innovation. Just has been an S+ tier combo. And then the Quicksmith Rebel to force us into action here. It's been a rough one. Rough first couple games. Yeah, this looks incredibly bad for us. Yep. And that's all we could do. They've still got enough energy. Plus another Artificer. That's 2 more Thopters. Jesus. Alright. 0-2 and really doesn't feel like anything we could have done these couple games. Our opponents just assemble insane Rube Goldberg machines over there and play some nasty games of solitaire. It's 0-2 heading into game 3. All right, here we are for game number 3. Time to turn things around and go crazy. Probably shouldn't keep this. It's all 4 and 5 mana stuff with only 2 lands in the hand, and we're not on the draw. Yeah. I mean, it's got both colors, but it's risky needing to hit multiple lands to actually do anything actively. It only needs 1 land to defend itself, and then it's got great top end. The Outrider can crew the Barge and have a servo lying around. You know what? I'm gambling. I'm gambling now. We're just going to get the ultimate luck. We're going to play like an absolute champion. It's time for the massive turnaround, and Eager Construct can help us. That'll scry towards our land. Helps our opponent too, but that's okay. Eager Construct doesn't discriminate. Time to rally into a 7-win streak. Let's go. Playing against Black-Red, Prophetic Prism, turn 2. We like to see that. Our hand's pretty slow, so the longer they take not affecting the board, the better. Audacious Infiltrator's a very bad draw. Not nearly as bad as anything that costs 3 or more, but we're looking for mana. We're scrying towards mana, and we're hoping. So Ornithopter, I was going to say, is probably not going to do anything, but then they hit the Inventor's Goggles. They can make it a 1/4 flyer, and then it does a little bit. Okay. Self-Assembler is the literal actual worst draw in our deck, because there's no reason to draw more Self-Assemblers when you have one in your hand to tutor the rest. And it's also the most expensive draw possible. Another Prophetic Prism for our opponent thanks to the Glint Nest Crane. Ornithopter is a 1/4 now. And there we go. There's land 3. So now I have interaction. I don't think I need or want to use it on anything yet. I'm just going to hold it. There's another Prophetic Prism from our opponent. Poke us for 1 in the sky. Pass turn. You know what? I'm just gonna blow up Ornithopter so I can start hitting them for 2 a turn again. Unless they want to blow up our construct. Then we both blow up our opponent's smallest creature. Alright, cool. We've both blown some removal now. Oh, you know what? I probably should have killed the goggles. That would have been better. Bad draw is bad. It's a Hope of Gearper. There's land 4. I think we draw the card and then play the Outrider and start beating down with a 5/5. Basically immediately, because nothing we play is going to block a flyer anyway. So we need to outrace 3 damage a turn. But I think we can do that. Okay. Problem is our opponent could have infinite counterspells here. I'll just cast the first self-assembler anyway. No counterspell. That's 1 hit from Bazaar Barge. And now we're guaranteed to not just top deck the 3rd self-assembler and lose out on more card draw that way. Unlicensed Disintegration is fine. It kills our 5/5, but we still have the 4/4. We are down to 12. Taking a lot of damage here, and I can't really revoke Privileges one of the flyers, because then they just move the goggles to the other one anyway. Make sure I don't take any damage on the ground with Revoke Privileges on the Weldfast monitor. I don't know that I can outrace them. I think I might have just taken too long. The only way I cast 2 spells here is Revoke Privileges plus Servo Exhibition. Otherwise I'm just playing a Pima Outrider and passing. Might just be Pima Outrider if they don't block. Yeah. And the Outrider can block the monitor because it's 2 creatures. So it gets around its menace. Okay, not if they just hit nothing but gas. And another spell still? When I guess we've drawn more spells than them, but it's because we're mana screwed. It's 2 more flyers? Alright. 0-3 it is. Probably should have mulliganed this hand. I believed in the heart of the cards, which was definitely my mistake today. Because we certainly did not have it. First couple rounds opponents did. They assembled some wild combos and just... no shot, really. I think the only decision that mattered at all today was whether or not to mulligan game 3. And that's all we could do. That's just Magic for you. That is part of the game. I think we drafted perfectly fine. I think we stayed real open. We ended up in a really solid green-white deck. But we just ran up against some really strong decks that had like their mythic tier hands. And there was no gameplay really to be had. It was 0-2 no matter what our decisions were. And then I just got a little greedy. I believed we could turn things around and be super lucky in that last round, and then we really just weren't. So not mulliganing does get punished pretty hard in the final round. Their hand was slow enough. I think we probably could have mulliganed, and if we had a decent 6-card hand, maybe got there. Probably not on a 5, not down 2 cards, but if our mull to 6 was fine, probably changes the outcome of that game. Yeah, it is what it is. It's part of life. We've got many 7-win runs in this format. I think we got 3 7-win runs, so we got to balance it out at some point. Get our record averaged out more towards 50-50 as a whole. I think the win rate is still really high because 3 7-win runs is like 21 wins with only like 6 losses in there, so throw another 3 losses to the stack without adding any wins, and it's still like 21 wins and like 10 losses or something like that, so still a pretty great record overall for the format, but a little sad to see all the losses clump up in a single draft that we had a pretty cool deck I would like to play with a little bit more. That's how Magic is. That is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video and are interested in seeing more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below, and if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.